Welcome back to Attack 404. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at part 2 of phishing analysis and how to put together an investigation and how to obtain message headers from Thunderbird and Outlook. Previous videos we discussed on how to pull an email header and pull an email out of a messaging client. In this case, we actually have the Outlook version that you need in order to do this. We're not working with the welfare edition. So in this instance, we are going to pull this email out. I'm not going to focus too much on this email because during my pregame, this is actually malware, and we'll analyze that in the next videos. So in order to pull an email out, what you do is just grab it from Outlook and then drag it directly into the directory that you want it in. If you want to take a look at what the email header looks like, what we will do is double click it, click on File, and then head to Properties. And then here in the Properties, you'll basically see everything you need in order to conduct your investigation, the IP address, where they came from, and everything else. I've gone over how to do the ticketing in the first email. I'll probably touch on some of that again in this one, because this is going to be a really quick video to wrap things up. So with that, we are going to head back to Thunderbird. And you can see in Thunderbird, there's quite a few emails that we have here. So with the emails that we have, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a look at how to get the message headers from Thunderbird. And we'll do that by going to View, Headers, and clicking on All. If we just do normal, you'll see that there's not much that we could look at here. And from that, if we go back in and then click on All, you see we have more information that we could mull through. And you see the entire message headers are displayed down the bottom. Now I'm going to take a look at the campaign and pivoting from there. And then we'll come back to doing a full analysis on the email. I'm going to go against my better judgment, and I'm going to click the link. You could see in the bottom, they've actually included my email address because, hey, why not? And I've been quite vocal about this before. I'll change some of the stuff to, hide the innocent. So I'm going to copy this. And now you can see here, I've edited out where my email would normally go because we don't need to give them that. And we're going to copy this, bring this into our lab. So this is a tool that I've written quite a ways back. And before we do anything, we're just going to take this out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it just to see if this website works, which I probably, oh, look, it does. Yay, how cute. So we see that the website does work. What we could do is launch an investigation with this. I think I probably updated. This might be an older version of the tool, and we'll do a whois on the server itself. From the previous examples on the investigation that we were running, and now I'm splicing this together for the whois section, we see that we have two indicators of compromise. The first indicator of compromise is the site that attempted to get us to authenticate, and the second being the site that captures the information once we quote-unquote authenticate. So the reason why the application didn't work is we weren't running the root domain, we were running the subdomain, and it wasn't returning anything from whois. So if we go back and we go into our terminal, what we will see is this. We're going to tell it to shut up. We don't want to hear about any of the legal stuff. You see it doesn't find anything. You see if we go down to the next subdomain, it doesn't find anything. Same crap. We have something. So what we have here is that this is in fact a Google-owned domain, and it wouldn't be prudent for us to block it. So if we want to block this indicator or compromise, and we go back to our indicator list, in a tool like Zscaler that supports this, we would normally put a dot in front of it, and that will block the subdomain from being accessed. So it won't affect any other subdomains or AppSpot itself. Now, we wouldn't block AppSpot for the sole purpose that it is a legitimate domain that's being used for an illegitimate reason. It's kind of like getting hacked with TeamViewer and then wanting to block TeamViewer and then IT uses it. It's a ton of problems. So the next domain that we're going to take a look at is the Babe Burnout, whatever the hell this is. And we will go back to our whois. And we'll pop that in there too. You see it, there's no record for it. We will also do a host on it. And you see there's nothing for host. We will also run nslookup. You see there's nothing. We do mx. We do mx. You see there's nothing. SOA. Nothing. And then we could also set this to any. And you see there's nothing available for it. So we can take screenshots of all of that to prove that we've done our due diligence to determine if this domain is in fact still running. Now, that's not to say that this domain can't come back online. So because this was in fact collecting information, we would kind of want to go back to our indicator lists, and we would want to block this domain as well, even though its reputation doesn't return anything that's malicious. The reason for that is if in the event this comes back online and this threat actor decides to use this domain in another campaign, then we already have ourselves covered. We can also try to search for something with man.php and an OSINT, and maybe we'll get to that later when we look and take a deep dive into campaigns. And if we pivot back to looking at our campaign, yeah, I get it. You want to spy. So this was probably a domain previously that probably got popped. And they were hosting that on. Yep, you can see it goes there with the post. So this would probably end up being two indicators of compromise, not only from this, and we could probably take this URL here. This is probably a legit site. So we wouldn't be able to block this, but as we discussed previously, if we put, so if we grab this out, not what I wanted. If we put a dot like that, what will end up happening is, I don't know why you can't type today, but if we add a dot like that, it will end up blocking this and not all of this if we're using Zscaler. But yeah, cute little campaign. I'm going to try to find a decent campaign that we can take a look at and show you some of the tools that I use when I do my investigations. So you see the end domain is clean. We'll back out and grab this just to see what VirusTotal says about that. So here you have the domain was in fact flagged as phishing by ESET. So I would take a picture of that and then tack that onto our analysis as well. So I'm going to try to blast through this as quickly as possible. not to waste anyone's time because we did go over a bit of this in the first video. So I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're doing here. So the only things that we're really concerned with on the email header side are pretty much the return path, the original to, the delivered to, and the delivered to can also include a bunch of other people. And I'll show you how we can get that information once we do our searches. You might need a Splunk license for this. So why are these things important? The first thing that we're going to take a look at is if this user was previously seen in any attacks, to see if in the event that this was leveraged from a compromised list. The next thing that we're going to look at is to see if the victims that were emailed to on the Have I Been Pawned list, because that might be how the email address was scraped, and we might need to protect them a little bit more and take a look into if the passwords have been changed since the last breaches that they were in. Lastly, we're going to look at the message ID, because this is going to be used to find the attacker if in the event we can't find them with the subject and we can't find them with the source of where the email came from. So if we pivot back to our malware lab, so we see that this user hasn't been compromised, in part probably because this domain doesn't exist or has existed at one time, and just by the luck of God, they've never been hacked. Good for them. So let's get down to what the Splunk searches would probably look like. I'm not going over source types because that is going to be for another day and time. So what we could do is basically what this is going to do is it's going to pull all the relevant details for every email that this dude has sent. If we want to get a bit fancy, what we could do is this. And basically see the exact email that was pretty much detected in our investigation. So now with that being said and done, what we could also do is we could move on and start looking at the domains that we've detected. So we see we have these two domains. This one they may give you a bit of a problem with. And the reason why I say this is because management might come back if they start doing checks on people. This isn't uncommon for a SOC that's just falling apart, where you have people so far up your ass they can be a proctologist and your dentist at the same time. And that's kind of a sign of a toxic environment. Unless you're being trained, and it's a different topic, but I'm not going to touch on the nitpicking side of it. So if we take this and we look at certain tools like VirusTotal, so if we start looking at our threat intelligence, we can see that the only domain that comes back from our investigation that is malicious is in fact the review activities. And you need the entire domain for that to actually work. So we see that there's 1 of 92 detections. Obviously we'll take a picture of this and we'll put this into our investigations. And with that being flagged, the next one that we'll take a look at is the Boss Babe, whatever the hell this was, the Boss Babe burnout. And we see that there's no hits on that domain. So if we go into IBM X-Force, we could also grab this domain. And we could also grab this domain here. Shut up. Again. So we see DNS records, we see potential malware that's been found. We see a dropper. We could also cross-reference these on VirusTotal as well. You can see that they are malware because they have the MAL extensions on them. There's some other domains that we might consider blocking as well. And then this domain here, there's no detections on it at all. So somewhere along the line, this was probably taken down rather quickly. But because it does do a redirect after you authenticate, and I would try to grab screenshots of that or a screen recording to upload to ServiceNow or Jira or whatever you use. and show that that is the reason why that end domain, the one that's here, is being blocked. A lot of organizations won't block a domain that doesn't exist or is secondary. So they would probably be more inclined to block this, because without this, this doesn't really do much. So that marks about the end for part 2 of analyzing email phishing and containment. We are going to take a look at, in the next series, of a deep dive for a phishing campaign and put together what it actually looks like in an environment where you might be doing an investigation on phishing, containing it, and then providing documentation for anyone that needs to look at it, as well as the blocks that you need to implement, and justifying it. This way they can't kind of come back and say that you didn't do an adequate job, or there's no justification on why certain things are not blocked. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe, and see you in the next video.